Hello everyone. My name is Sarah Ham from Dogwood Dreamers, and I'm going to be doing this stream talking about my personal reactions as well as a little information about dissociative identity disorder. And I hope that y'all can hear me. If there's any issues with the audio or anything like that, then please let me know. Because I don't want you to be sitting here watching something that's complete garbage. But before I get into that, I just want to kind of re-announce something that I had posted on the community postings on my channel. Basically just explaining that this will be the last video, probably, that will be on the Dogwood Dreamer channel as Dogwood Dreamer. The way it is now. After this video, I plan to move anything that is for the Dogwood Dreamer brand, whether that's tutorials or anything that's like a nature video like I did with the Ozone Fall ones, anything like that. I hope to move over to basically move it over to a separate channel that will actually be what am I saying? It'll be for all that as Dogwood Dreamer, and then I'm going to move or not move, but keep this channel. I'm going to rename it back to Detective Bryn, what it was originally called, and that will just be a place for Detective Conan and anime AMVs and other videos that have to do with those topics, because I feel like I've been posting a lot of these Dogwood Dreamer stuff onto Dogwood Dreamer, but I recognize that a lot of the people that came to that particular channel came for Detective Conan content, so it's not really fair to be putting a bunch of artsy and book stuff and things like that on that channel. So I'm separating them out. But that's just the general announcement. Get that out of the way first, and then we will get back into me reacting to Dissociative Identity. So, for a general gist, let's just talk really quickly about what dissociative identity is. Now, I'm sure a lot of you probably have seen clips on YouTube discussing this thing. Maybe you saw this particular video by Anthony Padilla, where he actually spends a day with people that have dissociative identity disorder, or maybe you've seen it in media portrayals. But I'm going to talk about those portrayals and my opinions on it because of the fact that I personally live with DID, and I'm not going to go into too many topics and discussion per se in this stream about my different alters, personalities, whatever you want to call them. I generally just call them by their names, and this isn't really gonna, as again, I can't promise anything because I don't necessarily always have control over them, but this isn't gonna be a switching live stream. The intention of it is not for me to display them switching on camera. If it happens, it happens, but I've never had a previous episode of them coming out from just talking about this topic, so I don't picture that happening, but we'll see. But I'm going to go very quickly into just kind of the definition of dissociative identity disorder, or DID, which was previously known as multiple personality disorder. As to why they changed that naming, a lot of it has to do with the fact that multiple personality disorder suggests that there's multiples, as in 3 or more. And not in every case does a person that has DID have more than the host personality and possibly one other. So that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons why they changed that description. But essentially, as it says here, dissociative identity disorder, otherwise previously known as multiple personality disorder, is a psychological condition that's caused by severe trauma during early childhood, usually repetitive emotional, sexual, or physical abuse. As for myself, I don't have any memories or knowledge for sure of what that trauma was for me personally. I have some guesses based off the triggers that seem to cause the other personalities to come out. but I myself do not have any memories, and that's what I understand, that's kind of the point of them, was to suppress those so that I could heal and move past that point. To the general knowledge that I have, not counting myself, Sarah, the host, personality, the main personality in this body, I had 3 others. 2 of them I haven't really seen arise again in several years, and it's not impossible that they're still around. It just might be that at this point in my life there's not a necessary need for them to come out. I don't know. And again, I don't have memories when they come out. I'll make that very clear. I know there's some people that kind of coexist with their alters and can kind of see in and out. But for me personally, it doesn't work that way for me. So I don't have any memories. So if they have come out at some point, it's possible I just don't know about it. But those 2 ones were Rin, which ironically is where I came up with the name for Detective Rin. And she was kind of the promiscuous, very outgoing, not really very shy of letting people know she exists, personality. There was Xena, as far as I can tell, and she, I think, would be what you would categorize, and I'll show some examples of this, but what you categorize as a little, in the sense that I think that she is a child's personality, just very, from what people have told me about her, she's very innocent, and just the way she talks is not reminiscent of a teenager, an adult person, anything like that. So it seems that that is a child. And then the one that has been recurring and has been a predominant part of my life, and I actually did make a mini documentary where she very willingly let us record her, is Nicki. And Nicki is kind of like the protector personality. And she seems to be, her sole purpose is to come out and kind of basically just protect me. If I'm triggered in an emotion, in a negative trigger, she comes out, kind of tries her best to calm the situation down, de-escalate it, and then when I feel comfortable enough to come out, it seems that I just naturally tend to come out, and that's how it is for me. But getting past all the definitions, I feel like it's important to talk about that though, because of the fact that every person that has DID is going to be somewhat of a spectrum. I feel like a lot of mental disorders are kind of like that, and just kind of giving a brief description of what my experiences have been. So in this, I'm going to be showing a couple different depictions from media, as well as I may react to some YouTube vlogs. Purpose of that is not to say that it's a depiction, because obviously in those cases, those people, at the very least to the best of our knowledge, actually live with dissociative identity disorder. But the reason that I am curious to see some of those videos is just to kind of see another perspective, I guess, on this disorder, and what for other people, how they live with it and deal with it, and I guess cope with it, and depending on the person, not every person has a negative connotation to themselves with it, but just getting that other side of it. I've seen some videos, but we'll see. But the first one that I want to get into, I wanted to briefly show, if you search DID on YouTube, for example, what kind of tends to come up. This one is one of the most common ones that's been coming up, is DissociaDID. And to the best of my knowledge, it's an English YouTuber who goes by Nin, if I remember correctly, and she tends to kind of introduce to the world her different alters and answer some questions about it. But you also have some interviews, you have some TikTok compilations. I'm not sure if I'm going to react to that, but that does seem interesting, because I have kind of mixed feelings about TikTok as a platform, but it could be very educational, the purpose behind it. You have the Anthony Padilla video that I was discussing, as well as just some different interviews, a topic on faking dissociative identity disorder. So there's a lot of interesting things that do come out on YouTube when you're looking up this topic. But what I specifically for sure I'm going to be reacting to is I'm going to be reacting to an episode of Psych called Who You Gonna Call, that features the topic of split personalities. I'm going to be reacting to a partial clip from an episode of The Golden Girls called Empty Nest, which features a DID character, as well as, what was this one? Oh, I'm going to react to a clip from the television movie Sybil. I've never seen that one, and but it's more so just for curiosity's sake, because I know a lot of people have talked about Sybil as an example. Almost, she's kind of who you tend to think of when you think on early media depictions of dissociative identity disorder. So I'm kind of curious to see how that was portrayed. And then, of course, as the thumbnail suggests, I am going to be reacting to Split. Now, I have not seen Split, and I have not seen this clip. So I'm kind of going into this with fresh eyes with you guys. I mean, some of you may have seen this particular movie, and you might have mixed feelings on it. I haven't heard necessarily positive connotations for it from the DID community, but we'll see. We'll give it as open of a view. And this particular clip, I think, is an actual clip from the Universal Studios channel, I think. Universal Pictures, and it shows every personality seen in Split. So I felt like that would be kind of a interesting one to react to, rather than necessarily purposely seeking out the horror clips, because obviously, to my understanding, it's a psychological horror. So so partially because I don't really want to be copyright stricken for showing like entire long sections of all these things, but also I want to keep this somewhat family friendly to some degree, and I will say, content warning right now, this is going to be talking about trauma. This is going to be showing clips that may be showing traumatic events, or might have coarse language or things like that. And if any of that offends you, or if any of that is something that would be a trigger or something that just could get to you emotionally, then maybe bypass that. Since this is a live stream, I don't have the chance at the moment to put in little markers of when to bypass certain things. I will try to see if I can do that once it finishes the live stream, but for now, if you're watching this live with me, then understand that those things could potentially end up onto the screen. And again, just generally speaking, let's try to be mature about this and understand that it is a sensitive topic, and if it's something that's going to affect you in a negative way, then possibly leave for the time being. Not that I want to encourage you to leave, but I'm just getting that out there. Alrighty, so let's go to the first clip, and this is from from an episode of the show Psych. So let's go. And I'm going to kind of full screen this. Okay, so I think that's the end of it. Yeah, okay, that's the end of it. I will say that I like the actual way they portrayed when he actually changes, just because of the fact that I think some media portrayal, as well as, I haven't seen too many examples of it, but I've heard stories, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get into that, but I've heard stories of people that either claim to have DID or are portraying it, and the way they show them switching between alters is just, it's so exaggerated and very insulting, to be honest. It's usually like them going cross-eyed, like, yeah, that's, and again, for me personally, when I switch, and for me, it's nowadays, it's not often. When I was in middle school, it was happening multiple times a day. I mean, it could happen multiple times an hour, to be honest. But the way that I tend to kind of describe it, for me personally, is usually by that point I'm worked up physically, emotionally, my heartbeat is beating, and to some degree now I can kind of sense that is potentially is going to happen. But the actual switching part is, it's obviously not this long drawn out thing because I don't have memories too much of the crossing point, I guess. But for me, I always kind of describe it as that sensation when you stand up too quick from lying down, and you kind of have that fizzy, almost like staticky feeling in your ears, and your eyes are kind of wigging out. To me, that's what it's like. But to how other people have described it to me, I just kind of look like, for me personally, I look like I kind of blank off for half a second, and then I'm somebody else. So it's not this exaggerated thing of or just freaking out switching. I have a hard time with some media portrayals that show it like that, because yeah, that's not really how it works as far as I'm concerned. But so that one was okay. Now I will say I have seen this episode before, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. But the one thing I do know is in this particular episode, the way that it ends is kind of an interesting one, be it kind of controversial, I guess, in that they find out that, yeah, this Regina lady is one of the personalities, but they realize that there's a third angry personality that's upset at the Regina personality because she wants to physically change Robert into a woman because of the fact that she's like, I'm a woman, I want to be a woman. And this other personality, whose name I can't remember, wants to stop that, so he literally, it gets to the point that he tries to murder the sex change doctor, and disguised as Regina. And then it kind of ends with, obviously, Sean and Gus are able to stop that, but they arrest Robert, but they go and put him in kind of like a psychological facility to get him some mental health and help and everything. And the only reason that I feel like this is kind of controversial, it's not a bad portrayal, but again, it kind of adds to the idea that we're dangerous members to society, that I mean, obviously, any person, whether they're having mental illness issues or to some degree they don't have mental illness, I'm sure you could argue against that. Any person can be dangerous. Any person has the capacity to be able to be mean-spirited, but to argue that every person that has DID is gonna have a personality that's either self-harming or dangerous to other people is kind of, to me, an unfair portrayal, because I haven't really seen that. To some degree, I've seen some self-sabotaging of my alters, again, making themselves known and causing scenes and stuff, but I haven't had any examples of them threatening bodily harm on other people or seriously actually trying to attack people, and it's kind of sad when I see portrayals that, again, demonize it, which I have a feeling we're going to be talking about quite a bit in the split clip. Now, going on to the next one, we're going to be talking about a small, this is a small clip, it's only like 38 seconds long, but it's going to be talking about, this clip from Golden Girls that features a DID character named Chuck, and he has another personality called Mr. Fix-It. I can't remember if they have other, again, I have seen the episode, but it's been at least 5 to 10 years since I've seen it, so I tried to find just a general one just to kind of show the example, and we'll see how well this does. But this is interesting because, again, Golden Girls aired in the 80s to the best of my knowledge, and kind of showing how the portrayals back then were compared to some of the portrayals now, because obviously Psych, that's more like mid 2000s into 2010 era, so that one's more recent, and we'll see. Anyway, let me get into the clip and stop talking. And I don't know why, but for whatever, okay, that's the highest quality it gets. For whatever reason, my computer, every time I switch into full screen, a lot of times it lowers the quality of the video, so if you see me doodling with that, it's because of that reason. I don't know why. Anyway, So here's Golden Girls.
Hello, Sophia.
Oh, hi. Come on in. Sit down. We're sorry to barge in like this. We were wondering if Mr. Fix-It was here.
Chuck is here.
Oh, darn. Do you think you could change into Mr. Fix-It?
It's a mental illness, Rose, not a masquerade party.
In Sicily, we had a guy with a multiple personality, only they didn't get along. And one personality put out a contract on the other. You should have seen it. He had a shootout with himself in the piazza. He winged a priest, a waiter, and shot down the Cinzano sign. Fortunately, he was able to beat himself senseless before anyone else got hurt.
So okay, that was kind of funny. I'll give him credit on that. That's kind of funny. It's stupid, but it's kind of funny. Again, yeah, the idea of purposely seeking, and I know in this particular case, I think it's because the Mr. Fix-It guy is handy while Chuck isn't, if I remember correctly. So I mean, it's kind of funny. That's actually not the one that I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can find it really quickly, because there was an actual scene, if I remember correctly, where he actually makes a comment that's kind of funny about him. I don't know if I'll be able to find it because I'm not going to wade through this entire episode, but let me see if I can find where he is. There he is. I think that's Mr. Fix-It there. So we'll just go to that point. Okay, that is the highest quality. So maybe my computer's being nice to me today.
You're 5 feet 6 inches. You weigh 300 pounds. What do you mean you can carry it? Beacons couldn't carry it. Okay, make an appointment for tomorrow. Come by the office. We'll talk about it. Right. Yeah, goodbye, Leonard. Hi, Chuck.
George, I'm a multiple personality. How do you know which one of the three of me I am?
Well, because Mr. Fix-It and Boris use a key.
Well, the three of us all live in the same body. I don't know why they don't let me use the key.
Don't they give you medication at the home, Chuck?
Oh, no. The doctor says I don't have to take it anymore. It doesn't stop the multiple personalities. It just relieves anxiety. I'm not anxious. I make other people anxious.
That's what it was. I remembered that line somewhere. And that's an interesting idea that even back then, the idea of how to fix it. I mean, because again, you can't cure it. There's arguments that you might be able to integrate the personalities, and I don't know how true that is. Again, sometimes I question if that's real because of the fact that two of my personalities haven't come out in years, but again, there might be a very big difference between actually fully integrating a personality and personalities being dormant. Because again, the idea of DID is that it's not so much that these just kind of come and go, though I have heard of people having personalities develop over time, like new ones, but the idea being that when you're a child and you're going through this repetitive abuse, you're so young that you don't exactly form a structured singular personality. It's like a fractured one. So that's why I have a hard, I mean, I know the term fractured makes you think, oh, well, you could just put it back together again, but I don't know how true that is. But that line is kind of funny, where he's like, I don't get anxious, I make other people anxious. It just, again, they're playing it up for laughs, but it is kind of ironic, the idea that, again, even in a comedic point of view, they're saying, oh, well, these people are creepy, they're weird, and it makes other people in society uncomfortable. So I think that we've gotten a little better over the years with how we react to some of this stuff and whatnot, with mental health becoming so much more discussed than decades before, but it's interesting looking back on old portrayals of it. Alright, so next we're going to go into Sybil, and this one I have not seen, and I apologize if there's some coarse language or anything like that, because again, I haven't seen this clip, but I'm curious to see, because this one, I don't remember, I think this was from the 70s, in 1977, I think it's from the 70s, so again, seeing an earlier portrayal of DID, or as they called it back then, multiple personality disorder. Okay.
I'm so awfully ashamed, Doctor.
It's all right.
I've always been like this. Always. And I used to think that everybody was like this. That they would just naturally wake up and be someplace else or a whole lot older or wearing another dress. Once I woke up and I was 2 years older.
Oh wow, I feel that emotionally. I mean, I haven't had a lapse or an episode, whatever you want to call it. I haven't had a switch that was that long, but I feel, especially looking back on how I was when I was first learning about this when I was in middle school, there was, and to some degree, even nowadays, but not nearly as bad as it was, there was a lot of the feeling of shame and embarrassment and just even some sense guilt of not being able to control yourself when one of the other alters is controlling the body. I remember there was this one time, I'm not going to get into too many details, but I had switched, and it wasn't a long lapse. I want to say that it was only like maybe 5-10 minutes, but I had switched to Nicki, and then switched back, and this was early into me dating my now husband, and there were other people that were visiting his house that day with me, and I just remember that I was so scared because I wasn't really open with telling people about it back then, and I'm still cautious of who I mention this to. I know that I'm putting this on YouTube, but I don't generally go around just up and telling people, yes, I have split personalities, but back then especially, there was a lot of shame, there was a lot of fear, and I just remember I just broke down in his backyard in a lawn chair, and I just started sobbing, and he came over, and he knew about this by this point, because I had told him early on, and he was just trying to comfort me and be like, it's okay, you didn't do anything crazy, she typed out a text message saying that she was mad, and there were some explicits in it. That's how I knew it wasn't you. Because again, I generally I don't use coarse language a lot personally, but yeah, I can relate to the feeling of shame and fear of just wondering what is going on when you're not out. Because every once in a while after the fact, I'll get like recollections that feel almost kind of like dreams, but I never get full pictures, and I'm not one of these people that sees it while the other personality is in control. So it can be scary, and especially back then, it was terrifying for me. So.
Oh, Lord. I think I'm trapped.
Final preparation for the Holocaust. It's Armageddon, Sybil. And it shall rise up in the east, and the river shall flow as blood. Sybil!
I'm sorry.
Interesting. I wonder if that's supposed to be a portrayal of like a little personality, just because of the fact that they're not vocalizing, and the instinct is to smash something. It reminds me a lot of like a toddler having a temper tantrum. So I'm curious. That was interesting. Anyway, moving forward.
Merci, monsieur. Où est-ce
Hey, you're a linguist. I only know Pig Latin.
Ah, yes, I was bilingual as a child. French, that's all I remember, and I'm sorry to say it's all wrong. Catch the...
That's interesting. That one, I kind of feel like they exaggerated the changeover a little bit. Now, obviously, they're trying to make it very apparent, but just the type of thing. Again, I'm sure if you were switching to maybe a little alter or one that has a hugely exaggerant change in personality, then yeah, you might look like that in switching, but that one looked a little bit bizarre. But the idea of her being able to speak French and maybe her host personality, Sybil, not being able to, that's an interesting thought, because there are stories and accounts of people that have skills, or their alters have skills that they do not. And I don't per se know if Nicki has, and the other two, yes, but Nicki especially because that's the one I know the most about. I don't know if she has any skills that I don't know. I do like vaguely remember, and I think I even wrote a short story out of it, that when I was in middle school they were doing archery and she was able to do, mind you, I have like no aim, no athletic ability. I'm klutzy, I'm a drunk octopus. I'm terrible. But for some reason I had switched, and she was doing archery for middle school gym class, and she was able to get 3 bullseyes in a row. So maybe there is some truth to that for me too. It's interesting seeing it because I have heard stories of that. Anyway.
Them for what?
By day, I'm a...
Say it's all wrong. Catch them for what?
By day, I'm a Central Park cowboy. But by night, a tone-deaf wandering minstrel. Street musician. Say yes.
Music. Just the exaggerated music of this. Okay, it kind of reminds me of the music they play for like alien abduction scenes and stuff. It's just very exaggerate, and that one wasn't too bad. You just kind of lowered your head, but again, anyway, I'll stop nitpicking that.
Sybil can't say yes. Vanessa,
Oh,
you
okay,
go.
she's having a
You like
flashback.
music. You may go, Vanessa. Richard? Richard?
Richard? Hey! Okay. Well, look, I'm not any good at jumping over fences, so where do you live?
That's creepy.
What did I do?
On the avenue, Fifth Avenue. Vanessa, what's the matter, sweetie? I'm not Vanessa.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy, but you popped out so fast. What's the matter, sweetie?
It was...
What the hell did that monster do to you? What happened in the green kitchen?
Okay, so this one's obviously a little, and that's creepy music. So I think that they're probably gonna maybe talk about the trauma she experienced. My guess is it's probably gonna be sexual abuse. That's what I'm guessing, but I could do without dramatic music because it makes it really creepy, but we'll see. Anyway. Oh, okay, they're not even gonna show it. Okay, it switched. That's kind of interesting.
Nothing matters now.
Okay. Well, that was kind of interesting, that last one, because I don't know if they were trying to suggest the idea of her being suicidal within one of the altars, but again, obviously it's a movie. They're gonna have soundtracks that are gonna play up the creepy factor, and I almost kind of wish I had seen the scene where she's asking her about what happened to her, because again, I have seen in some interviews with people that have DID where they manage to either something manages to trigger it or they manage to trigger out a personality that goes into what happened to them, and it's very hard to watch, both because of the fact that I have this and I don't know for sure what the cause behind it was. I have some guesses, but I'm not going to go into that because that's personal for me. But that was interesting. That one kind of got my heart racing a little bit, just some of it I relate to on an emotional level, and that one was a lot less comedic in nature, which I appreciate. I think the comedic ones have some value if they're accurately portrayed, but a lot of times it feels like they're playing off this disorder for laughs, and so I just, yeah, that one was a little harder. Now I will say, and I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do it, but I've thought about looking at my own previous mini documentary where we were able to videotape Nicki and whatnot. But I will say that that one in particular was very hard for me when I first watched back the footage. And obviously for the mini doc, it was shortened because the actual interview we ended up doing, I think, ended up being about half an hour. But gosh, that after I watched the full footage, the first time especially, but the first couple times, I broke down crying because it was just, one, I'd never obviously seen her in person. I heard things about it, but I never had any actual physical evidence of her. And gosh, just seeing the ways that she has protected me over the years, and just seeing just how she viewed herself and how she viewed her purpose. It was really hard to hear her talking about how she wants me to heal, but how in doing so, she feels like it doesn't really make sense to her to have her own life. And if I have enough time, I'll briefly maybe show you that too, because I think the mini doc's only about 4 or 5 minutes long. But okay, we're gonna get into the main one that I said that I was going to talk about, and that's reacting to this clip from Split. So we're gonna see, and I have a feeling that I'm not gonna necessarily, just from what I've heard, I have a feeling I'm not gonna necessarily like all of this. Now, I will say that James McAvoy himself is a very good actor, and I've enjoyed a lot of his roles, but I've heard a lot of negative responses from the DID community in regards to this movie, so I'm curious to see. And this is not going to show the full movie, it's just going to show clips of different personalities seen in it. So let's just jump into it so that I don't just keep babbling on and on. Anyway. Good.
I think Orwell or Jade
Sorry, I have a touchscreen.
or Samuel or Heinrich had the light for a moment and emailed me, and you're here to tell me everything's okay.
I emailed you.
May I talk to one of them, please?
I will say semantically, they're already kind of making it creepy by having this, and it's not close-up, but it's a pretty close shot, and showing his eyes, and showing the kind of the twitch and everything, and I'm trying not to get worked up by it, but it's already kind of creepy, and this scene to me shouldn't be creepy, because he's seeing a psychiatrist, so, anyway.
That can't happen. I told them that I wanted to spend the session with you today.
I'm going to ask again. To whom am I speaking with now?
I will say, the psychiatrist, she seems to have a decent grasp on the idea of it. Just the calmness of her, and the fact that she's able to recognize some of his just different personalities just from this couple of seconds is pretty impressive. So I have a feeling that I might like her more than I like him.
Dr. Fletcher, it's Barry.
It doesn't seem like Barry. Barry is an extroverted leader.
Yes, I am.
I'm going to take a professional guess, based on the description of all 23 identities that live in Kevin's body.
23.
That I've gotten from Barry. I think I'm talking to Dennis. But he's been banned from the light because, among other reasons, He has a proclivity to watch.
They're getting even closer with it. It feels like they're getting closer and closer and closer with those close-up shots. Oh, it's unnerving.
Young girls dance naked, which...
Wait, what?
He has a proclivity to watch young girls dance naked, which he himself knows is wrong and has fought against with little...
Okay, that's kind of uncomfortable. I mean... Is it impossible for a person with DID to be a pedophile? I mean, I am not saying it's impossible. I'm sure a person that's gone through enough trauma probably might be able to, because I mean, I've heard of several pedophilic serial killers that went through a lot of childhood trauma, but it's already off to a bad start with the kind of he's so broken that he's a pedophile type of thought. So, which again, I should know this because I know to some degree the plot and that he, I guess, kidnaps girls or something, but it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Anyway.
Success. I'm encouraged we can finally meet. And I've guessed this because you've adjusted the chocolate dish twice since you came in here, and I understand you have OCD.
No, I see. Now I see. That's clever.
Okay, that's kind of fascinating, the idea that one of his personas has OCD, not necessarily all of them. That's just, it's kind of an interesting idea. Again, kind of playing into the idea of different alters having different skill sets or mental disorders or just habits and stuff. That is kind of interesting. I'll give them that on that.
Please keep your area neat. The bathroom, it's unacceptable. Make it easy. I've color-coded these. Use a blue bottle for the floor and the pink bottle for the ceramic surfaces. Patricia has reminded me that I was sent to get you for a reason, that you are sacred food.
Wait.
That you are sacred food.
Did he just say sacred food? Oh gosh, they're gonna turn this into a cannibal thing on top of it. Pardon me. I can see why the DID community would be pretty upset about this. Again, it's not impossible a person with DID would have other forms of psychological trauma or ways that they've coped with it. Obviously, the whole idea of DID, that it's kind of like post-traumatic stress disorder in a lot of the symptoms, and the fact that as a child you went through this major repetitive trauma, and your mind is trying to deal with it any way that it can, but it's just, especially since this movie came out, as far as I know, in 2017. This isn't something that came out in the 80s or the 70s where people had no concept of DID, and so it is frustrating, the idea that it's, I know it's a psychological horror and I probably shouldn't be nitpicking it this much, but gosh, it's frustrating just seeing how much they're demonizing it. And I just, if that's what he was implying by saying you're sacred food, oh gosh, that makes me mad. Anyway.
And I promise not to bother you again.
It's also just creepy, the idea of this. Then obviously he kidnapped them, so it's meant to be creepy. The idea of him just standing over these girls that are hunched up into this very like scared, and obviously you would be if someone kidnapped you and this happened to you, but just again, just a lot of people that go through this. I shouldn't even say that. Obviously it depends on every person, but for me, having gone through this, having lived through this, it didn't make me, one, it didn't make me dangerous, but two, I didn't ever feel like a confidence out of it or anything. And he's not necessarily confidence, but just the idea of dominating over a person with it. And maybe it's because of the fact that I'm female. Maybe if a person that had this was male, maybe there would be some dominant personality. And again, I don't know if I'm even making sense, because yeah, I do have a personality that's a protector personality, but it's just the imagery and having taken some video courses and just recognizing the setup. It's just, again, it really, really demonizes this disorder and makes it out like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde idea, really. We'll see if I get through all this.
I have your meal, sleepyhead.
Oh my gosh, it's creepy. It's so creepy. I know obviously he kidnapped her and everything, but just the idea of waking up to this guy just as a woman and acting like a woman. In that moment, he is a woman. I get that, but gosh, that would be so freaky. And again, if I acted that way with a person, then I would understand a person being scared of me. I really wonder if I'm gonna get through all this, because gosh, it's already stirring me up.
Eat.
Okay, so she's trying to almost be like a motherly figure, which is...
It's good. It's got paprika in it. I'm sorry. I think I'll put a pretty flower in your hair.
These poor girls.
That's to show how important you are.
Oh, that's an interesting camera angle. I will say that some of these clips might mess with me, because I also have a tendency to have motion sickness and to some degree vertigo in some cases. I can't watch like Minecraft live streams because that first person reaction messes with me, so I'm gonna see if some of that might become an issue too. But I think they said it was what was his name? Hedwig. Interesting.
My name's Hedwig. I have red socks.
Okay, so obviously an alter of a little, unless he's supposed to be just a guy with a lisp or something. But it seems like it's that with the clothes too. Okay.
He's on the move.
What?
He's on the move.
Who?
Someone's coming for you, and you're not gonna like it. You guys make noises in your sleep.
Tell us.
I'm not supposed to say. But he's done awful things to people, and he'll do awful things to you. I have blue socks, too.
Where's food? How old are you?
9.
Okay, yeah. So it's a little. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but again, they kind of. I mean, not kind of. They confirmed the whole cannibalism thing.
So you're not the guy that took us?
No.
You're not the lady.
What are you, blind?
Oh, that's interesting. So he's got clips
With
up.
regard to Johamana's defeat and Muhammad, of course, conquest between 1192 and 1200, I would liken it to Muhammad's bravery.
Okay, so this is very much an intellectual one. It's kind of goofy that they're kind of making an archetype of it with him wearing glasses and like the studious sweater shirt type of thing. I can't call it anything other than what it is. It's a character of this studious, almost professor-like one, but interesting.
Is an ultimatum that Prithviraj either apostatize or fight. Like Prithviraj's defiance we should stand up to the Horde's advances. In the face of their scare tactics, we should choke.
I hate my insulin shots. No one else around here has to take them. Why do I have to? Diabetes. All the doctors.
Interesting. So one of them has, one of them is diabetic. It's an interesting idea. I don't know if that one would be possible, just because of the fact that while your personality is different in an alter, the body's still. I don't know, because I've heard stories of people that have different physical capability, like being more physically active than others and stuff like that, but it seems a bit less believable, the idea that one of them would have diabetes compared to the other, an insulin deficiency. It's fascinating, and if that is possible, then by all means, somebody correct me and everything and whatnot, but that. Alright, and we're already getting some issues with a split clip, so I might leave it at that, but I just want to see. Okay, I want to really quickly get to the Beast one, because that's the one I had heard about, and dang it. My stream got blocked. Okay. So I'm gonna have to close that. Sorry, guys. Okay. So we'll have to leave that one alone. I had a feeling that might happen, sorry. I wanted to look at the clip from the Beast, because obviously that's the one everyone talks about, but I already have an idea. The fact that they're talking about cannibalism, and I've seen people talk about it, so I haven't seen the clip itself, but I have an idea, so sorry. I hope that not too much of it got cut off. So I just then noticed that it was blocked. And again, I kind of knew better by even showing that in the first place. So I think that's the majority of the clips. I don't want to take the risk of getting too many more things blocked. I don't know if a YouTube clip would allow me. Maybe if I would just look at it very briefly. I'm not going to watch one that I've already watched, because I've watched the Anthony Padilla interview where he talks with Nin the first time around, and I've seen that. I've already seen that, so to me that's not a reaction video. Obviously some of these I've already seen, but it's been so long to me that it feels more like a genuine reaction, while that particular one I literally saw less than like a month ago, so to me that doesn't really feel like a fair reaction video. It is fascinating, and I do suggest that you watch it, because it's not just of DissociaDID. There's a couple different ones that are in that particular one, but instead I think I'm gonna try and actually look at one of her clips. I'm not gonna watch the whole one, because again, I don't want to keep getting blocked, and I'm going to have to look back on this live stream and see how much I got blocked. I'm hoping that it was just, okay, so it looks like it was just from the Split stuff, which I should have known better. Obviously that's a big movie, so they were going to come after that, so we'll leave that one alone. But I'm going to react to one of hers. This one's kind of interesting, because this looks like it's a makeup tutorial and a Q&A. And see if, obviously I don't think that's necessarily going to feature a lot of her alters, but in a sense that's fine, because I just want to see her perspective on it more so than actually catching her switching on on her channel and everything on her video. And that's one thing that, again, like I said, that's not the purpose of this live stream. I have kind of not mixed feelings about switching channels, but I don't really necessarily want that to become what my channel's about, just because, again, for me, it's not something that I necessarily want to share too much with people. It's very personal for me, and talking about having it's one thing versus, for me, not saying anything about DissociaDID, but for me, putting that on display for the world to see. So, we're gonna watch one of her things, and then I think I am going to react to my old mini doc, because it's been a long time since I've seen it, and kind of that'll, to those who want to see what she's like, you can see it. And I've had a lot of people that said that she actually doesn't seem that much different than me, but anyway. So let's see DissociaDID's Q&A rainbow makeup tutorial.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by DissociaDID. This is Nin, and this video is going to be a little bit different than our normal ones. So we get a lot of requests, and I mean a lot of requests, we always have, to do a makeup tutorial. So I was thinking, alright, how can we bring you the content that you want to see from us, and
make sure that I'm actually switched over. Yeah, okay, I am switched over, okay.
also keep it educational. By DissociaDID. This is Nin, and this video is going to be a little bit different than our normal ones. So we get a lot of requests, and I mean a lot of requests, we always have, to do a makeup tutorial. So I was thinking, alright, how can we bring you the content that you want to see from us, and also keep it educational and based around DID, because that's what we're here for, that's what's important to us. So I just...
Good for her, she's not trying to turn this into just kind of capitalizing on talking about it. I like the fact that she's saying that the purpose is she's going to do a makeup tutorial, which is fun, and obviously she's a very pretty lady, so that it's understandable that people would request that, but that she's still going to keep it educational. I like that.
Decided, alright, let's make a makeup tutorial and have a voiceover where I ask questions to myself and other alters in our system.
Well, that's fascinating. Okay, so I just thought she was just going to be answering questions about it, but I guess she is going to be asking them to the alters, so maybe this will have some featuring of switching personalities, but okay. Anyway.
The questions that were asked were given to us by our patrons, and we're very excited to share the answers with you. But first of all, we have a sponsor for this video, so thank you so much, Function of Beauty, for sponsoring this one. First of all, what is Function of Beauty? Function of Beauty does custom for aspects of hair. So
really
functions, and
relevant.
It's also a lot of house stressity, and again, Function of Beauty for sponsoring.
Okay, I will say it is interesting that she does have a little note saying that it is Nin that's doing the makeup tutorial. I think that is an important thing to distinguish sometimes with alters if you are filming them, that you distinguish who they are, especially like in the mini doc that I had. I explicitly got Nicki's permission before we filmed it. I will say that the B-roll footage that's featured in that documentary was not Nicki, that was me. And the main reason of that was because it was for a filming class, a video class, and I had to be able to have something where I proved that I filmed something for the assignment. So it was not her in the B-roll footage, but it was her in the interview. So I think that's kind of interesting, though, that she's explaining that Nin is the one that did the makeup tutorial as we go along. It helps to keep track, I guess.
Can the inner world change? Yes. The inner world of some systems remains fairly stable, but for others, it's more changeable and reflects the mental state. Where there is a really common visible change that works in that way. Sometimes buildings even fall down. Rooms, towns, islands, and galaxies.
I do think it's also interesting that she's giving her instructions under this because she's doing the Q&A as the voiceover. Probably have to look into this because I suck at makeup, so maybe I could learn something from this. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but this is kind of interesting. Anyway.
Galaxies can appear and disappear. Some areas of the inner world may be inaccessible along with the alters who reside there. Some places may only be visible to certain alters. There can be fires and natural disasters. If it can be imagined, it can potentially happen, as long as it makes sense for the mind to visualize the experiences that it's processing in that way.
That is a fascinating idea. And again, I obviously I can't see into the minds and the eyes that my alters see through, so I don't know what I don't know what it feels like for them when they're in and out type of thing. But I have heard from some people that I don't know if they for sure had DID, but they, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's very nice that they would even share some of it, but they kind of had like this room structure in their mind for some of the, because some of the alters communicated with me and they talked about how some of them would be in this room, and in that the way it was described was almost just like a basic room with a bed and some books and stuff like that. So it's interesting that she's talking about how, and it might not be her, it might be some of the other alters or even we. I know she talks in the pronoun we sometimes, but showing what it looks like for them. That is an interesting idea. Skip ahead because I want the questions more than I do the actual tutorials. No offense to her, it just, again, she's doing a gorgeous job, but I want to react to the questions more.
Do you and the other alters consider yourself family? Depends on who you ask. Some of us have familial bonds, some of us are friends, some of us are acquaintances, polite colleagues, or like just don't get on at all. All our relationships are complex and fluid, sometimes tumultuous. The details of some of our relationships are so elaborate that like I wouldn't even know how to describe them, like with the relationship between me and Nin. As a whole, we're stuck together, for better or for worse.
Okay, I didn't catch, but I think that one might be one of the male ones, because he's got a thicker...
Do you and the other alters consider yourself family?
One.
Depends on who you ask.
He is featured in the Anthony Padilla video, so that's the only reason why I recognize that, because it's a very different accent that comes out of his mouth versus Nin when she talks, which is much more like, not Queen's English, but it's almost like an estuary English, versus his almost sounds very Cockney English type of accent. So sorry, I couldn't help but point that out because I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound like Nin, but she pointed out that some of them were going to be from her other alters. So but that is also what he's saying is interesting, because yeah, I think there is a question sometimes of if my alters feel like family. Now I can't really speak for the two that have been at the very least dormant, but I wouldn't say Nicki and I per se think of each other as family, but I think that we over the years have gotten to an understanding more of each other and recognizing what she's trying to accomplish, how she's trying to help, that she is the helper, and just again the idea of, I guess we're more on a friendly basis. It's been a long time since we've connected, and I actually, at some point, after I filmed the mini documentary, we actually filmed just for Nicki to see kind of my reactions to the video and trying to kind of talk to her. To the life of me, I can't remember if she ever saw it, but I think that I would want to do something like that again, just to kind of update her on what all is going on, and because it's been a long time since she's been out. I want to say it's been at least a year or two. No, yeah, maybe about a year. And it's possible she's come out in some degree and just no one's seen her, and I just don't remember it, obviously. But the most recent one that I recall was, I think, about a year and a half ago. So, but it would be good to let her know what's going on, especially with the fact that I moved and everything, so that if she does come out, she's not terrified. So, but yeah, for me, I don't think we think of each other per se as family, but we have a better understanding and respect of each other now than we did I don't know so much with Rin and Xena. It's hard for me to think of them in a positive light. Looking back on some of the stuff that they did, and again, I know, especially Xena, because she's a child. She's not gonna think about things the same way that I would and rationalize things. So it's hard to necessarily be angry at her, but I do have negative memories of things that were told to me after the fact with her. So this is an interesting question to ask. So
some of us have
skip ahead again.
The D like with the relationship between me and Nin. As a whole, we're stuck together, for better or for worse.
Again, skip a little bit.
Does a diagnosis of DID or OSDD affect a system's ability to drive? Yes, it does. A diagnosis of any form of dissociative disorder should be reported to the Driving Regulation Authority of the country you reside in. For the UK, this is the DVLA. If you do not inform the DVLA about a medical condition that affects your driving and they find out later, you could face a fine of £1,000. Additionally, if you are in an accident as a result of your condition, you may be prosecuted. While DID and dissociative disorders are not listed on the government website to check this, it is important to note that dissociative disorders can cause dizziness, unclear vision, and difficulty concentrating. Some people also experience dissociative seizures and amnesia. PTSD is also closely correlated with DID and OSDD, as they are severe forms of the former when viewed on a scaling spectrum.
Okay, this is very interesting. I never really thought about that, but she has a really good point. And looking back on it, maybe that's something I should have thought about bringing up. Because yeah, it's kind of I guess the same idea as how someone that has narcolepsy would have to report that they have narcolepsy to their local DMV or whatever your motor vehicle department is in another country. I guess I just never thought about it. And I don't necessarily have any experiences of any of them coming out while I was driving, but that is something to think about, especially if Xena ever did come out, because obviously she's a child, she wouldn't know how to drive a car. That's something that I probably should think about then. I didn't think about that. As a responsible citizen, that's something to think about. Interesting. Anyway.
These can all drive safely.
System move up a little bit, because again, I don't really want to watch the whole thing of the tutorial. Oh, let me go back.
Do you have a favourite alter? This would be like asking someone to announce who their favourite friend is in front of like all their watching friends. Alters aren't characters, we ain't role play, we don't get to choose how or what to be like. We respect each other as individuals and
yeah, I mean, that kind of just sums it up. Yeah, I don't have a favorite alter, and yeah, like she's saying, we have a respect for each other. We recognize the purpose of each other, but I don't have a favorite alter, because that's not how it works. Anyway.
And we appreciate each other's strengths and weaknesses that have allowed us to survive, basically. DID forms due to repeated childhood trauma, and the existence of each of us brings something uniquely important and necessary for the survival of the body and the mind. Every alter is equally important and valued. Who don't front or very rarely front.
Getting caught up in her thing.
Is it normal to have some alters in a system who don't front or very rarely front? Yes, not all alters will front with the same regularity as each other. Some alters may stay inside. There is a specific category of alter called internal self-helpers, and they generally stay inside and help the system from within the mind. They have roles less suited to fronting or being in the body, and doing so may be unnecessary for them to assist the system effectively. Some alters may go dormant for a time. Dormancy is comparable to being in a coma in the external world.
Yeah, like I said, I have two of them that, at the very least, to my understanding, they're dormant. And that's why, again, when I hear terms like integration, I don't know if that's possible or not, because again, there's not a cure for DID, so my assumption is that they're probably dormant, and for whatever reason they're not needed at the moment, so probably because of the negative things that they've caused over the years. And again, I don't say that to blame them for everything and be angry at them. It's just, I as a human being have grown, have changed, and with that, I think my dependency and reliability on some of these alters has changed as well. So that is interesting to note that she's kind of confirming that information. Well, I think I'm going to leave it at there just because I don't want, this is a longer video and I don't want to spend the entire time, and this stream is getting kind of long. Just kind of, I don't want to spend the whole time just reacting to this, but she has some great points, and at some point I do want to watch the full video on my own time, and it seems like something that you should watch too if you're curious about this. Because she's got a whole channel full of different things. I mean, you can see she's got the girls of DissociaDID, their alters, switching on camera, male alters, stuff like that. So she's got a lot of interesting videos that might be informative to somebody that's trying to research this for one reason or another, whether you think you might have it. Now, I will say, if you are concerned about that you might have this, and especially if there's a lot of fear and shame connected to it, especially nowadays with how much we recognize mental health, and I understand the fear of maybe you can't afford it for one reason or another, but if it's something that's really important to you, and especially if you have concerns for your health or well-being, then go to see a mental health therapist, a psychiatrist, something, just even if it's not about getting a formal diagnosis, just for the sake of getting yourself on track, recognizing how your mind's working, if this is in fact DID or whatever it is, but you're not alone in this if you're experiencing these things, even if it doesn't turn out to be DID, even if it's something else, because there are a lot of mental disabilities and disorders that have similarities, so that's why I don't want to, I am not a medical professional, so if you have questions and things like that, then by all means get professional help in actually recognizing what it could be, but also more so how best to help your mental health with it. So lastly, and then we're going to finish this up and I'm going to let you all go, I'm going to react to my own video that I had of Nicki, and go. Probably should have just went to my actual channel. That would have been easier. That is close. Where'd you go? There you go. So it's her side, the story of Nicki. I also will say I am not in any way a professional videographer, so bear with it if it's not necessarily the prettiest cinematography. But this is going to be an interesting watch. It's been a long time since I've seen this. This was filmed, I think, in 2018? It was 17 or 18. So, okay. My name is Nicki. I want to say that I'm probably in my mid-20s. I don't see time the same way as you probably do, or Sarah probably does. Generally speaking, I've almost always been older than her, it seems. Yeah, already looking at this again, I think that she and I have a lot of similarities looking back on it, because I'm sure from a viewer watching this compared to me talking now, we don't seem that different. I'm not like, it's not like with Nin where Kyle had a very distinct difference between it, but again, I'm sure it just depends on the alters, and Xena and Ren were very evidently different because of the fact that people would notice them right away that they were not me. So, but Nicki's always been pretty good at almost like being like a chameleon. She'd blend into situations, and if she didn't think it was safest to reveal herself, she wouldn't. So I guess in a sense she would have to be similar to me in personality to pull that off, because she's not an actor, obviously. So anyway, it's just interesting to note looking back on it. And I don't know if that's just how she would feel safer. I think my purpose has kind of been to be the one to say for her when she can't that this is not okay, you need to get out of my face, you need to leave her alone. Again, I don't really have friends or relationships. I don't recall too many people's names unless they had a big enough impact. I think that she needs to get out of this mindset, at least in some capacity, that she always has to try the hardest of everyone. She always has to make sure every other person is taken care of before she is. She needs to either... This was one of the hardest things when I first watched this was, again, there's nothing like looking at what looks like yourself, telling yourself some of your strongest flaws, and one of them is the fact that I personally tend to be very independent-minded, and I don't want to rely on a lot of help for one reason or another. But it was hard the first time I watched the video of this before I did any editing, and just hearing her perspective on, yeah, you're too hard on yourself. So yeah, it's interesting looking back on it. Remind herself, or have other people remind her, that it's okay to take care of yourself every once in a while, and you're okay to make mistakes. And if you disappoint people, so be it. Sometimes you're gonna disappoint people. I don't think that she, at least when she was younger and I was around more, I don't think she wanted other people to know about me too much. So I tended to try and hide myself as best I could. Sometimes I couldn't, but a lot of times it was just teenage boys in her face trying to get me to come out, because they would, I guess, knew somewhat about the situation, but especially that particular one, he thought it was some kind of game. The last time I recall... Yeah, and I'm not going to get into too many personal anecdotes with that, but yeah, when I was in middle school, they would come out, and when I started to learn about this, they would come out anywhere from once a day upwards to maybe about 10 to 12 times a day. I mean, when I was in middle school, that's where it was at its roughest in terms of the constant thing. And then especially, like Nin was talking about, how it can affect your health. I never had a seizure from switching too many times or anything like that, but I have had times where coming back from doing it constantly like it was in middle school, I would just have one of the worst headaches that I ever had, and it would leave you fatigued, and not even accounting for the shame and fear aspect of it, just the physical just attack on the body in a sense. So yeah, it was hard, and again, I'm not going to talk about this particular individual that caused a lot of it, but looking back on it, and I'm sure for her it was 10 times worse, because she was trying to kind of mediate and protect me in that case. But those were some hard years, and I'm hoping that this person has moved on in their life and has gotten healthier habits. I wish, I'm not going to say the gender, I wish them the best, and I hope that they've moved on, because I've forgiven the situation, and I'm not going to make it out like I was innocent in everything in regards to middle school, because I wasn't with this person, and I am sorry to them for some of the stuff I pulled back then too, but I've forgiven them for some of the kind of messed up stuff they've done, but I hope that maybe they learned something from life experiences, and that they recognize now that that wasn't the right thing to do. Anyway, all being out, it was a little more nerve-wracking and almost scary because of the fact that I had no idea where I was. In cases like that, where I have no idea where I am, I think it's almost as scary as it probably is for her when she comes back and has no idea what she's been doing that whole time. I don't tend to warm up to a lot of people, because I come into a situation assuming the worst. Most times I don't trust whoever I'm around, so I tend to either hide, or if I think that it's because they're the cause, try to get them away from her. Of course, there's a part of me that wants her to no longer rely on me, because then that means that she's strong enough and she's gotten herself in a situation that she feels safe enough to deal with these situations. But at the same time, it's also kind of a weird thought, because that means I cease to exist. I don't know if I have any form of a spirit or being, because again, I think I'm part of her own personality in a weird sort of sense. But it is a little scary to think of, I guess, in a sense, dying. In terms of having a future, That's kind of a subjective term. I think the concept of a future for me would be a dangerous concept, or at least in the sense of having my own life. This was the other thing that was one of the hardest things when I first looked through these clips and everything, and this was the part that I broke down over. Just, again, I understand what she's saying, obviously, and I understand that she, for the sake of me thriving, feels like it's not her place to have a role in this world, but it was hard kind of seeing her say that that it's a dangerous thing for her to want to have a future and be happy. It was hard. It was hard to see it the first time. Seeing instances of her life, I think it would be fine. I don't think I'm here. Oh, those are my puppers. They passed away recently, so it's interesting seeing them again. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Instances of her life, I think it would be fine. I don't think I'm here to enjoy life. I don't think that I'm here to have friends or boyfriends or anything like that. It'd be interesting at least to have some kind of indication of where she is, just so I have an understanding and I can attempt to rectify the situation without having to forcefully tell other people if I can help it. So that might be helpful for both of our sakes, but other than that, I think I'm content with where I am. But for the people that are going to see this, I know that probably a lot of you are kind of confused. Maybe you've never heard of what this is. Maybe you feel like she's just faking this. I guess the main thing is just treat it with respect, please. Because I think a lot of the biggest issues I've had with this situation, and the biggest issues I've had in terms of Sarah's personality, is that a lot of this seems to have links to afraid of how other people are going to perceive her. If you are going to watch this and you're going to be curious or you have questions, just please don't treat this like a joke. Yeah. And then of course that ending is one of the hardest things for me, just because I've never heard from people of instances of her breaking down like that, so that was a first for, I think, probably for both. I mean, I'm sure she's cried before, but that was hard for me. But I think that's all that I really have for you guys. Just again, wanting to show that portion, as well as my reaction obviously to all these things, but that portion of my own situation with it, seeing it from her side, and just kind of recognizing that, again, we're human beings, and we're not demons, we're not like the beasts that go and kidnap girls and eat them or anything like that. We're not superheroes, like, or anti-heroes, whatever, like Glass would portray, and we're not monsters. And obviously some people with DID have a harder time in their life than others, but any person is capable of really just succeeding and doing the best for themselves and for their lives, regardless of the circumstances. And if there's anything that I found, that's one thing I have found for my situation, is that when I stopped being so concerned about how other people were going to perceive this, and just kind of accepted that this was a part of my life, regardless of whatever you wanted to call it. This was me, and recognizing it, recognizing the best ways that I could live with it, in some degree cope it with it, and just move forward as an adult. That's when I started to feel a lot more peace with the situation. And so I'm hoping that in this, that hopefully you learned a lot, or maybe you didn't learn anything, but hopefully you got to see kind of why I've had a hard time with some of these media portrayals, and why a lot of people with DID probably, especially Split, gosh, that one really ticked me off, but just seeing why portrayals like that, while it's fascinating in the sense of how it's acted and the actor, I'll give him credit. He did a very good job at portraying the different personalities. I'm not going to discredit that, but recognizing the damage that comes from portrayals like that in our society, and trying to, at the very least, have people become more informed and really just try to take away something from this other than, oh, look at that weird person that has multiple people inside of her head. So, but thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And looking back, I hope it wasn't too glitchy. This is my first time streaming, so hopefully it turned out okay. And I just really want to thank you one more time for joining me today, for all you that did, and I wish you guys a wonderful rest of your week, and have a great one. Bye!